America has convinced itself that its age of eugenics is over. But is it really? In 2014, a California state audit exposed that what many advocacy groups, prison employees, and inmates already knew. Female prisoners were being unlawfully sterilized. Over an 8-year audit period, 144 sterilizations occurred in California prisons. 39 of those occurred without lawful consent. In addition to the violations listed here, there is a widely accepted ban in the medical community from asking for sterilization consent when a woman is in labor, under the theory that she cannot give true consent in that moment. But that is exactly when these women were sterilized. Essentially, the prison doctors and other healthcare providers breach their professional duty to get full consent from their patients. Just as the eugenics movement was dominated by concerns about the welfare system, so too were the actors in the prison system motivated by financial strains on the state in caring for these women and their potential children. According to Dr. Heinrich, an OBGYN who performed some of the sterilizations, the costs of sterilizations were minimal compared to their potential benefits.
Over a 10-year period, that isn't a huge amount of money, compared to what you save in welfare paying for these unwanted children as they procreated more.
It was all about efficiency. The state saved money by preventing these women from having more children. Notice the assumptions at play in this statement. Of course, these inmates will procreate more, and of course, any future children would be unwanted. Crystal Wynn, a former inmate who appears in a documentary about the sterilizations, puts it better than we could.
Inside of prison, once you're in there, it's as if you're treated as an animal, as that you have no rights. No one's gonna care because basically you've been to prison, so they feel like that you're less than, and that you don't deserve to have kids. You committed a crime, you're in prison, you're doing your time, and they're thinking that, yeah, we're doing society a favor by not letting you reproduce.
These women have been attributed certain behaviors and preferences based on assumptions about their role and character. Heinrich's word choice may also reveal a deeper bias. When we say procreate, we're usually talking about animals, not people. It might be easier for officials to ignore these women's rights if they are seen as just a little less than human. In fact, Heinrich and other prison employees did not even see themselves as the ones in control in this situation. Rather, it was the inmates who were purposely gaming the system. As Dr. Heinrich said,
they all wanted it done. If they come a year or two later saying, somebody forced me to have this done, that's a lie. That's somebody looking for the state to give them a handout.
Dom Martin, a prison medical administrator, agreed with Heinrich, claiming that pregnant women would deliberately commit crimes so that they could receive better health care in prison.
Do I criticize these women for manipulating the system because they're pregnant? Absolutely not, but I don't think it should happen.
What's weird about these statements? You guessed it. Stick becomes ball, and ball becomes stick. Those in control have somehow managed to cast themselves as the ones being compelled by their situation to offer these sterilizations. And the imprisoned women are now the dispositionist actors who, through their deliberate choices, end up pregnant and in prison. And of course, the very status of these women as convicted lawbreakers no doubt had subconscious influences on the doctor's treatment of them as less deserving of care than law-abiding citizens. However, the experiences of these women tell a very different story. Former inmate Kimberly Jeffrey says she was pressured by Heinrich to be sterilized while in prison for a parole violation.
He said, so we're going to be doing this tubal ligation, right? I'm like, tubal ligation, what are you talking about? I don't want any procedure. I just want to have my baby. I went into a straight panic.
This conversation happened while she was under sedation and strapped to an operating table preparing to give birth. Jeffrey went on to say,
being treated like I was less than human produced in me a despair.
Christina Cordero was in prison for auto theft, had a similar experience when Heinrich repeatedly pressured her to receive a tubal ligation.
As soon as he found out that I had 5 kids, he suggested that I look into getting it done. The closer I got to my due date, the more he talked about it. He made me feel like a bad mother if I didn't do it. Today, I wish I would never have had it done.
After these events came to light, California officials finally recognized that the prison environment is an environment where consent simply cannot be obtained in a responsible, reliable manner for these procedures. In other words, the situation that these women were put in made it impossible for them to exercise truly free choices, despite what we might believe based on their prior criminal behavior and status in society.
When you're in prison, you do what you're told to do to get out, period. So even in the idea of medical care, if a doctor tells you you should do this, you're automatically inclined to feel like you should do it, simply because of the environment you're in. And you're likely to sign a paper without fully understanding the lifelong ramifications, especially if they hand you a paper, you sign it, that's it. Some people may be happy with that decision, but at the end of the day, it is non-informed consent, it is coercive. Thank you.
In 2014, California enacted a law prohibiting sterilization of inmates outside of a medical emergency, which will hopefully prevent future unlawful sterilizations. But what will happen to the women that this practice already affected, who can no longer have children? The state has done nothing to offer remedies, and tort law may not be a viable method for recovery. The strict statute of limitations on California's Tort Claims Act, combined with the fact that many women may not even realize they have a viable cause of action, makes chances of recovery under that statute unlikely. Beyond that, it may be difficult to establish the requirements for negligence. The state may argue either that the doctors had no duty to the inmates regarding their fertility, or that they did not breach their duties since they were ostensibly acting in the women's best interest. Additionally, the harm suffered by these women may not even be recognized as a valid harm in tort law, since they suffered no ill health effects. Finally, calculating damages may be an insurmountable roadblock. How do you put a number on the loss of potential children? Unconscious bias would likely affect the award of damages as well. A judge or jury may very well be reluctant to give financial reward to a former prisoner. Ultimately, a court might see the whole situation as a regrettable misunderstanding, as the court in Madrigal v. Quilligan did. While these women's consent was given under coercion, it will likely be seen as a legally sufficient consent, since tort law has such a strong dispositionist lens on parties' actions. California and other states can pass as many new statutes as they want, but without a systemic change in how we attribute blame and in how we allow the vulnerable members of society to recover for harms done to them by those in power, justice for these women will remain unrealized.